Okay, so I've been wanting to make a video like this. Hold on, I need some coffee. Mm, that's really good. I've been wanting to make a video like this since I came back from the U.S. Another vlog. I know I haven't made one in a while, and it's really noisy, and I don't know how the setup works. So I may, well, it's definitely going to change, but I got to see how it changes and in what ways it's going to change. So right now it's just sort of like a test. But anyway, the video I want to do most right now, I want to talk about the differences between the U.S. and France. Now, you see, the thing about that is that there's about 1.6 quintillion differences between these two countries, so it's very difficult to nail everything down, but I'm going to try to do the most important things. I'm going to try to hit the most important things first, and it's a really nice day out, so I want to do all this outside. I want to do as much of it as I can outside, and that's what I plan on doing. I may go back to doing the videos where I go to different places. I probably will, but for now I want to have a sort of setup like this where I can just do a vlog on like my balcony or in my living room or something. So let's begin. I have my notes here, and I have my coffee, and we're all good. I went back to the US. I went back to New York in the beginning of January, right? So I've been here for about 7 months before that. Coffee here is very different because it's actually good. And when I say that, I go back to the US and you get a coffee. You go to Dunkin' Donuts and you can get a small coffee, and a small coffee is about this big, right? Now a small coffee here is about this big. So it's very, very tiny, but it's a lot more tasty, it's a lot more powerful, it's a lot more fresh. Good Dunkin' Donuts coffee, a large Dunkin' Donuts coffee, is just, it basically tastes like piss. It actually tastes worse than piss, and they're very watery, and they're just not good, and they're not powerful. These cups, this is like a typical cup of Italian coffee maybe. These are very small, so you can have 6 or 7 of these to be the equivalent of maybe a medium coffee in the US. And these are extremely powerful. Like I said, I got the beans, like they're Mexican, so you go to the store and you pick out what bean you want from where, and they all have different types of power and they all have different tastes. There's the same types of shops in the US and people use the same shops, but for the most part, coffee in the US is like, you go to a drive-through and you go and you order a coffee on your way to work. And here it's not like that. You go to a coffee shop, you sit down, and you have a coffee with either a friend or in this town, Cabdai, that I live in. You go to the little coffee shop here in the town center, and hold on. Oh fuck, that is really, really good. You go to the town center and you sit down, you have a coffee outside, and you end up seeing people from all over the town because you know all the people, right? And it's just a different type of atmosphere. It's a lot slower, which brings me to the second thing, which is the lifestyle. The lifestyle of Southern Europe, at least, is extremely slow compared to New York. Of course, in New York City, you had people always walking everywhere. They were always on a warpath, right? And it was very difficult to either get somebody's attention or, in many cases, have somebody look up from their phone to see where they're going. In New York, everybody has a mission, and they walk extremely fast, and they walk extremely tough, if you will. And it's just, everything there has to be done at the speed of light. And here it's different. It's very slow here. It's relatively quiet, except for this goddamn jackhammer over there. That il peut aller se faire foutre. I'm still learning French, but anyway, he really, this guy really needs to piss off. Anyway, for the most part, it's relatively quiet, and Monaco is a little bit different. Monaco is more like New York, where it's a lot faster and it's a lot more urbanized in its business, but at the same time, it still retains a lot of the European style of life, where everything's slower. People walk slower, people talk slower depending on where they're from, because Monaco's mostly consistent of people who aren't from Monaco. I think I may have touched on that before in the earlier Monaco video, but if not, Monaco in its basically Monaco is a very small country with 9,000 citizens, about 13 or maybe 19,000 people, I don't remember the exact number, live there. And a lot of them come from neighboring France or Italy, which is 20 minutes away. It's the language, which is important here in Monaco because a lot of people here speak English, right? There's a lot of Americans who live here, a lot of American businessmen, a lot of American tourists, a lot of British tourists, more so than the Americans. For the most part, down here, if you see anybody who's a native English speaker, they're going to be British or Australian or some type of Commonwealth nationality. And the language barrier for, maybe not so much for the British, because a lot of them do end up speaking French, but for Americans and such, it's very difficult to get around neighboring France and neighboring Italy, because a lot of people there don't speak English, especially in neighboring France. In this southern part of France, if you leave Monaco, pretty much nobody speaks English. There's a decent amount of Italians who speak it, but I've come to find that the Italians they're not the most inviting people, at least the ones that I've run into over the border in Italy. Like I said, I'm 20 minutes from Italy, so it's very, very close. But you do have to speak French down here, and of course that's nobody speaks French in America, so that's a big difference. So going back and speaking French was definitely a really cool experience, and you put on the accent like this, and people think that now you are French. Speaking of the French, they are really aggressive drivers. The thing is, the way I look at it is that Americans, New Yorkers at least, are most similar to French drivers, because we are extremely aggressive in the way we drive. And I don't know if people say it's if you could drive through Manhattan, you could drive anywhere. That's not true. If you can drive through France, you can drive anywhere, especially Paris, Nice, Marseille, all these big cities in France. If you could drive through them, and Rome actually too, if you could drive through those cities, you can pretty much drive anywhere on the planet. Now the Italians, since we're so close to Italy, there's always Italian cars on the road. You could tell by the license plate, they have the country code on it. So for example, F is France, I is Italy, DK is Denmark, D is Deutschland, which is Germany, GB is Great Britain, etc. The Italians are just incompetent drivers. I don't know how else to say it. Whenever there's a blockage on the road, or somebody's driving like a complete moron, I always see an Italian plate. They just stop in the middle of the road. They turn down the wrong way, down one-way streets. They're just incompetent drivers. Like, I love them. Don't get me wrong. I love the Italians. I have a lot of Italian friends, but man, are they just awful drivers. But the French, like I said, are extremely aggressive, and they will get angry at you extremely easily. And a lot of times they drive dangerously. Like, they always tailgate. There's a lot of tailgating. And the roads here are extremely narrow, usually one lane in each direction. So you have bikes that fly around the cars, and they drive up and around, and people go through red lights, and it's just, yeah, they sort of drive how they want to drive. That brings me to my next point, the French government. So this is something I'll touch on, the French government specifically, in a different video, but I'm sure many of you have heard about the Gilets jaunes. Very interesting group of people, if you will. The French are very active in their government. They protest a lot, and we're already up to the Fifth Republic, and I wouldn't be surprised if soon the Sixth Republic would come along. But the French government is sort of, I'd say, is one of the most stable in Europe at the moment. Europe has a lot of stability problems with its governments, for example, particularly Italy, Hungary, Romania, Germany to an extent, and of course Great Britain with Brexit. But Monaco has its own interesting government. So basically it splits power with the prince, between the prince and the National Assembly, which is the parliament consisting of 18 members who are elected throughout the country. And the country's smaller than the size of Central Park, so keep in mind that these districts are extremely tiny, and every vote does end up counting. The Monegasque government is very interesting because they're sort of in a, if it's not broken, don't fix it mindset. Monaco sort of just works. It really shouldn't work because of how the global climate is today in terms of finances and politics. So it really shouldn't work, but it does for the moment, and I don't really see it lasting more than 100 years. I mean, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love Monaco, but I think it's going to have to change in a lot of ways if it wants to continue being this business-friendly safe haven, if you will. And it's an absolutely gorgeous country. Don't get me wrong, I really do love it there. It's definitely it is the safest country in the world empirically, but it's gonna have to change in the coming years, and I don't know how it's gonna happen, and I don't know what's gonna happen, but it will definitely be something that's very interesting to watch. I think that's really it. That's really it for now. I'm gonna do another video on funny little quirks of the French language, which there are many, and the French culture, more or less, more so the French language. But I want to do a video on that. I want to do a video on what else was I going to do? The video on that. There was some videos on other things too. I want to do more of the going around videos. I want to try to get as much in as I can, especially with this view. And this is the middle of February, and it's snowing right now in New York, and I'm standing out here with a light shirt on late in the day. So it's definitely a very, very different lifestyle to live. But thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll be able to get around to do more things soon, and hopefully these videos will have a much better quality in the future, because right now it is quite frankly shit. But hopefully it's shit that you enjoy. So again, thank you very much, and bonne journée.